For those who chose not to have children, what was the main reason for your decision? Story 1. My mental health is not good enough for me to also raise a child. It's just no. Sometimes I barely am able to take care of myself. Edit. There are a lot of people here who really struggle with mental health. Just know that you are not alone and that there is no shame in putting yourself first. Work on healing yourself as best as you can. Story 2. While I like children, as I was a teacher, I literally had zero desire to be a parent. Simple as that. Being a teacher was great. I got to be around kids and still have my evenings and weekends to myself. Story 3. The main reason is that I just don't want children. I helped raise my siblings as a kid. I know what it's like to change diapers all the time, constantly have to keep an eye on this child, and so on. It was exhausting. I don't want to do it again. And honestly, my mother stole part of my childhood when she made me and my sister help that much at 12 and 10, respectively. I don't want to sacrifice any more of my life to what is exhausting work. Story 4. I'm just not very maternal. The sound of children crying makes me want to run away, and don't get me started on bodily functions and smells. I don't especially like children. Some of them are cool, but I find them mostly annoying. I dislike children's activities like parties and play parks. I can't stand children's TV and music, and it would drive me insane. I didn't have very good parenting myself and don't want to pass on any of the generational trauma I inherited. Oh, and I like to travel, read quietly, spend a morning in bed if I like, and spend money on the things I like. Story 5. I just don't want to raise children. The same way I don't want to change my name, get a tattoo, or take up skateboarding, I don't want to raise a child. It's not an obligation to have kids. I've never had so much as a fleeting thought like, maybe I want kids. Story 6. I like sleeping, traveling, and spending money on myself. Additionally, I'm worried that my overall disinterest in children would mean I'd struggle to break the cycle of abuse, and their childhood would reflect my own. Story 7. I just don't want them. I never played with dollies as a kid. I never babysat. I'm a nurturing person, but awkward around kids. That being said, I got my tubes tied 20 years ago this month. I won't lie and say that even in 2004, I was seeing a future political breakdown in the US, and the idea that Roe versus Wade could be repealed. If I had told anyone this in 2004, they would have thought I was insane, but I never wanted to live in a situation where my personal biological choices were decided by a government that wants to control women's bodies. Story 8. Money. Simple as that. They are classified as a luxury item where I live now, West Coast, Canada, and it's hard enough to put food in my and my wife's mouth, let alone a growing child. Add to that a lack of family support, expensive childcare, the fact that we'd probably have to raise them in a shoebox apartment, and we'd probably struggle financially for the rest of our lives. We've decided that, at least until we move abroad, it's not fair on any of us to have to struggle. Love is great and all, but love doesn't feed kids, especially if they have the same appetite I did growing up. Story 9. I want children so badly, but I am now 34, I have polycystic ovary syndrome, fibromyalgia, and only make $59,000 a year, and still rent an apartment with high medical debt and student loans. I can't afford a child. The cost of daycare is the same as rent. I don't have that money. I just can't do it. With my debts, I am still living paycheck to paycheck, and in a high cost of living area. Not to mention climate change, microplastics in placentas, etc. I couldn't do that to my child. I just couldn't. I would feel severe guilt for bringing them into the world as a newborn with blood full of microplastics, only to deal with a crippled economy and impending climate disasters. Story 10. I have never felt the slightest interest in having children. I guess I would ask the opposite question: why do people choose to have children? It seems like most people give it very little thought and just assume they have to. Story 11. I don't want to sacrifice my career or work. If I want to be a good mother, I'd want to be there fully for the child or children with no career distractions. I enjoy thinking about my career for now. Story 12:1. Because I do not want any, and I deeply resent the fact that I have to justify it beyond that. 2. Sits next to you, screams in your ear for 18 years, takes $250,000, and never speaks to you again. Story 13. I never ever, for a second, wanted kids. Not the remotest interest or urge. I adore all animals, but kids kind of bore me in general. I told people from the time I was 10 that I never wanted kids. They all said I would change my mind when I got older. It has been 50 years now, not sure how much older I will need to get. Story 14. I don't have the desire. I don't want the responsibility or expense. I don't want to create a human life to be subjected to all the other individuals in society. I'm not optimistic about the future of humanity and the many existential crises we seem incapable of tackling, many of which are caused by too many people. Everything is subject to economic forces, even people. I don't need to devalue human life by creating more of it. We have enough people. Studies show people without children are happier. Story 15. I'm a firm believer that life is net negative. Nothing is truly worth the anxiety, depression, and struggle to live month to month. Not just that, but people being awful to each other at best. Someone like me, who has a very negative opinion of life, shouldn't have kids. It would be like bringing the lamb to slaughter. And I don't want to do that. Even with therapy helping me out bit by bit, I still believe that life is bad. Story 16. There's a background music in my mind all the time. It says I am worthless, I am stupid, I am a liar, I am a disappointment, I cannot do anything right, I am strange, I am hard to understand, I care about the wrong things, I am unwelcome, nobody wants me here, I say the wrong things, I enjoy the wrong things, I am ugly, I have no future, and it all plays all day, every day and night in every combination. And it sounds like my parents. I have learned to live with it, and I have found people and things that help. But I never want to be that to anyone. Story 17. My list of reasons is too long to write, but have you looked outside? Have you seen how messed up everything is? That's the main reason. To bring a child into this world is an act of cruelty. Story 18. Children can be messy, bothersome, and costly. I have no doubt that if I had an unexpected child, the oxytocin would take over, and I would be completely enamored with the little one. However, I would never voluntarily choose to take on that role. Story 19. Certainly, here is the revised text with corrections applied for better comprehension and suitability for Azure text-to-speech AI. Kind of selfish reasons like not wanting to have a post-pregnancy body, tear myself a new butthole, or deal with any other medical issues that could come from it. I'm 5 feet tall, and I feel it would be very uncomfortable. Life is challenging anyway. Story 20. I was just never in a position where having kids made sense relationship-wise, I guess. I always felt mostly nothing when I thought about having kids. I was open to it, but never felt any desire to have them. Never really had any maternal instinct. My longest-term partner of 12 years didn't want them, so it just wasn't something on our radar. We were happy and didn't think about kids. I think if we had stayed together, then I still never would think about it. There was never a moment in our life where either of us thought, yeah, life would be better with a kid. Unfortunately, that relationship ended for reasons beyond both our control, so I ended up single in my late 30s and honestly, well, I guess that door is closed now. It's not some huge regret, like if I had valued it enough, then obviously I would have made that a priority earlier in life. But honestly, I do sort of wish I'd have a family, and I worry about being very alone as I get older. On the other hand, if I did have kids, my life would be a lot different than it is now, and I can't regret the things I've done and the people in my life I wouldn't have had if I'd had kids. So it's just kind of a sadness that you can't do all the living you want in one life, you know? Story 21. The main reason is that they are annoying. Sub-reasons include my inability to handle the annoyance. I know I would eventually snap and verbally or physically abuse them. Therefore, I'm doing the best thing I can for my future children, which is to make sure they are never born. Story 22. I mean, have you seen children? But in all seriousness, I find most children loud and annoying 95% of the time. It wouldn't be fair on them to have a parent who is constantly irritated, and I certainly don't want to spend 18 years living like that either. Story 23. I was married for 10 years and planning to start a family with my wife. We had waited to start until we were both done with our degrees and had stable careers. We moved to Colorado together. However, after coming home from a business trip, I found out she was sleeping with the neighbor. We got divorced, and since then, I have never felt like having another long-term relationship that would serve as a foundation for raising children. I am now child-free and happy to be that way, as I have no connection to my ex. Story 24. We're dinks, nearly 20 years married. Didn't want them at first due to the stress and lack of agency. Then we saw our friends have them. The more they had, the more miserable they got. Then we really didn't want them. Now we're in our mid-40s and looking to retire in our early 50s and continue to do even more of whatever we want to do. Story 25. I raised my foster sister's children until they were preteens. I was in high school, coming home to 3 kids I didn't even give birth to but was responsible for until I was 27. I basically had to give up my future to help her. I just don't want to raise any more kids. I'm all parented out. I'm tired, boss. I'm just now going to college at 32 because I'm finally financially sound and recovered from it. Story 26. I do not like the idea of children hanging off me for every little thing. I do not want to be a mother. I do not want the physical issues pregnancy causes. I can't stand the idea of being the primary parent, as almost all mothers are. Maybe if I were a man, I would be open to children, but as a woman, it's a hard no. Also, life in general is just bad. Why would I do this to someone else, knowing I'm so miserable? Story 27. Would you want someone to dump all of life's pains, aches, hardships, longings, dangers, anxieties, and so forth onto you, with maybe the rare bit of occasional joy if you're lucky, and then the kicker? Eventually, you pass away, get forgotten, and lose everything you ever knew and loved? I wouldn't. And that's why I'm never having kids. Life is almost a century-long battle against the odds. I'm barely into my 40s, and I'm already tired of this. Humans were a biological misfire. Story 28. Quite frankly, I'm just too selfish to raise a child. If I want to go on vacation, go to an event, or just go and see friends, all I have to do is either find someone to check in on my cats or take them with me. I enjoy being able to just up and leave whenever I want and only really have to plan for being away for longer amounts of time. I would not be happy with the complete lifestyle change that a child would bring, and I'm not willing to make the change either. I got a vasectomy because of it, since even with all the precautions you can take, I don't want to risk anything happening accidentally. No child deserves to be raised by someone who doesn't want them and will resent them. They didn't ask to be born. Story 29. I've never wanted children ever since I was young, but now I really don't want children. I honestly don't think I could handle it emotionally. I worry enough about my dog, so I couldn't imagine how worrisome and stressful it would be to have my own child in this world. Story 30. My former spouse of 14 years has schizophrenia. While he was usually compliant with his medication, he would frequently stop taking it, enough that his very delusive and paranoid self would emerge. That version of him would not have been a great father, though I loved him deeply and wanted children with him. Then, he became addicted to crystal meth midway through the pandemic, and that really sealed the no children for me deal. Now it's too late. Story 31. I hate kids and I don't want to go through pregnancy. My roommate got pregnant. We had to call the ambulance every day for a few months because her toxicosis was that bad. It was a good lesson in contraception for me and the other roommates to use condoms and avoid risking. Story 32. Having kids is not just about having enough cash. It is a huge commitment that demands maturity, time, and energy too. We need to be real with ourselves. Are we emotionally and physically ready for that? Do not want to pass on any traumas to the next generation. Plus, with resources getting scarce, we need to think harder about bringing new humans into this world. Story 33. Oh, I have so many reasons, laugh out loud. 1. The process of birth looks awful, but even more significant, so dangerous, especially for minority women. I'm African American. 2. Also, I don't care if you forget the pain. I had an intrauterine device placed, and I still have a traumatic visceral response to that. I couldn't imagine childbirth. 3. Also, I'm straight, and the way these men behave, I don't think I could find one reliable enough for parenting. My brain doesn't need another reason to want to eject me from living. That kind of stress and hormonal fluctuation literally can cause psychosis. No. 4. Also, I just don't think it's necessary to actually birth more children. There are already so many parentless children in existence. Let's put their needs above some of ours to have a clone of ourselves just because they'd be cute. Laugh out loud. If that seemed harsh, cry to your mama. Laugh out loud. Story 34. I personally think kids are annoying and exhausting to be around. The world has billions of people on it. I see it as selfish or ridiculous to have children in this day and age. I'd rather take care of people who are already on this planet. I couldn't afford the hospital bill to have one, let alone raise one. Story 35. I have two siblings who are 15 and 17 years younger than me. Being a teenager with babies in the house is a massive wake-up call to what it actually means to be a parent. It is a lifetime commitment that I do not possess the disposition for. I am 36, so if I ever want biological children, my time is going fast. And they are so extremely expensive, and they always have dirt in their pockets. What is that about? I have a 16-year-old dog, and she's quite the responsibility, but she never tells my secrets. I always told my parents secrets. They were not impressed when I was 12 and wondered aloud among a group of their colleagues why they had so many different chocolate sauces in their bathroom by the jacuzzi. Well, I think my dad was quite proud of himself. Mom was rather embarrassed.